You are usually the steady one. The room shifts and you don't. Voices rise and something in you stays level. You notice the change before anyone says it out loud. The pause, the tightness, the moment when things could tip in either direction. You stay where you are, breathing evenly, listening, not adding anything that might disturb the balance. It's not something you think about, it's something that happens automatically, like your body already knows what to do. Others move faster, react quicker, feel louder. You stay composed, present, held together. There's a quiet sense that if you remain steady, the space will stay steady too. So you do. Not because anyone asked you to, not because it's rewarded. It's just expected.
You were still young when you started noticing it. Around 7, maybe 8. Old enough to sense shifts, not old enough to name them. An adult's voice would change. Their movements would tighten. Their attention would scatter. You could feel it before anything happened. The air got heavier, less predictable. You learned to watch closely, to measure your words, to decide when it was better not to speak at all. Sometimes you did say something, and nothing settled. The tension stayed or grew. Other times you stayed calm. You softened your voice. You slowed your movements. You made yourself smaller inside. And things didn't get worse. You noticed that difference, quietly, without anyone pointing it out. You started adjusting before anyone asked you to, lowering your reactions, holding your expression steady, acting like everything was fine even when it wasn't clear that it was. Not because you were taught to, because it worked. Your calm seemed to stabilize the space, like if you stayed level, the room might stay level too. So you learned to regulate instead of react, to absorb instead of express. Somewhere in that noticing, a simple understanding formed. Staying calm keeps things from getting worse.
At some point, it stopped being a choice. It became a rule. Not spoken, not explained. Just understood. If you stayed steady, things held together. If you didn't, they didn't. So the rule settled in quietly, firm, final. If I don't stay calm, then everything gets worse. You didn't question it. You organized yourself around it. Your feelings learned where to go. Your reactions learned where to stop. And that rule stayed with you long after the moment passed.
You became the calm one, not because you were born that way, because the room needed it. You became the one who didn't raise their voice, the one who softened their tone first, the one who slowed things down when emotions sped up. You became the stabilizer, the steady presence, the person others looked at when things felt tense. You became the emotional anchor, the one who listened more than they spoke, the one who stayed measured when others unraveled. You became the one who never escalates, who pauses, who absorbs, who holds their reactions inside until they disappear. And people noticed. They called you level-headed, mature for your age, easy to be around. They trusted you with their stress, their worries, their unspoken fears. They leaned on you without asking if you were already carrying too much. And you learned to stay upright while everything moved through you, to keep your face neutral, your voice even, your emotions contained. Because the world responded well to this version of you. It rewarded your steadiness. It relied on your control. So calm stopped being something you did. It became who you were.
There's a quiet name for this. Not one that explains everything, just one that makes it real. Psychologists call it emotional overfunctioning. It sounds clinical, but it isn't an accusation. It's a way of saying this didn't come from personality alone. It came from context, from having to manage more than your share, from learning to regulate the room before anyone taught you how to regulate yourself. And hearing it named doesn't turn it into a problem, it just confirms what your body already knew. You might notice that you are usually the first one to steady the room. When voices rise, something in you softens instead of sharpens. You slow your breathing, you choose your words carefully, not because you feel calm inside, but because you know what happens when things spiral. So you become the pause, the buffer, the one who keeps things from tipping over. You might feel responsible for emotions that aren't yours. Someone is upset, and your body reacts before your mind does. You scan their tone, their silence, their mood, and without being asked, you adjust yourself to make it easier for them. You don't always know when that responsibility began. You just know it feels automatic now. You might stay composed even when you're exhausted. On the outside, you look steady, reliable, unshaken. But inside, there's a quiet fatigue that never fully lifts, because being calm all the time takes effort, and no one ever checks how much it costs you to keep holding that line. You might struggle to access anger or urgency, not because you don't feel them, but because you learned early that strong emotions create instability. So when something hurts, you minimize it. When something crosses a line, you rationalize it. You stay level when a part of you wants to react, and over time, that reaction gets harder to find. You might become the safe one in relationships, the one others lean on, the one who listens without flinching. People tell you they feel calm around you. They trust you with their chaos. And while that closeness can feel meaningful, it also quietly reinforces a familiar role. You are needed most when you are regulated, not when you are real. You might begin to confuse calmness with worth. You feel valuable when things are smooth, when no one is upset, when nothing feels tense, and when conflict appears, your sense of safety wavers, as if harmony is proof that you're doing something right, as if disruption means you've failed. And you might suppress your own needs to keep that harmony intact. You choose timing carefully. You soften requests. You delay saying what you want until it feels safe enough for everyone else. Sometimes you don't say it at all, not because it isn't important, but because you've learned that calm is fragile, and you've been protecting it for so long that you don't know how to set it down.
This wasn't calm because you were naturally composed. It was calm because someone had to be. The environment required it. The moment needed containment, and you learned how to provide it. That steadiness didn't come from strength in the way people usually mean it. It came from awareness, from reading what wasn't being said, from sensing when things might fall apart and adjusting yourself to keep them standing. This wasn't a personality trait that appeared on its own. It was a response to pressure, a way of keeping things functional when no one else could. There is nothing weak about that, and there is nothing exceptional that needs to be celebrated either. It was intelligence under constraint, a system adapting to survive. Understanding this doesn't change what you learned to do, it simply places it in context, and context is what loosens shame, without asking anything else from you.
You became calm because someone had to, not because it felt natural, not because it was safe. You learned how to slow yourself down when things around you felt unsteady. You learned how to keep your voice even, how to watch faces closely, how to notice shifts before they turned into something louder. No one asked how you were holding it together. No one checked whether you needed someone else to step in for you. You noticed what needed to be done, and you did it quietly. You stayed composed while your body stayed alert. You stayed reasonable while your feelings stayed contained. You stayed calm so the moment wouldn't tip. And you did that long before anyone told you it was your job. You weren't calm because it was easy. You weren't calm because nothing affected you. You were calm because reacting felt dangerous, because escalation felt costly, because someone had to absorb what was happening, and you became that place. You learned how to breathe through tension, how to swallow reactions before they reached the surface, how to keep things moving smoothly so no one else had to feel uncomfortable. That was a lot for someone that young, even if no one around you noticed it. You didn't get to be messy.
You didn't get to be loud. You didn't get to fall apart in the way children are supposed to. You became steady instead. You became careful. You became reliable. And maybe no one ever said thank you. Maybe it was simply expected. Maybe it was treated as who you were instead of something you were doing to survive. You held more than your share without naming it. You carried emotional weight without being taught how to put it down. And nothing needs to happen with that realization right now. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to change. This moment is just about being seen, about recognizing that the calm you carried had a cost, and that the child who learned to hold everything together was doing the best they could with what they had.
You don't have to hold the emotional center right now. Not in this moment. Not here. Nothing is falling apart because you're not stabilizing it. Nothing is asking you to step in. Nothing needs to be managed for things to stay intact. You can let the room feel however it feels. You can let the silence exist without shaping it. You can let emotions pass through without catching them first. There is no role to perform here, no tone to maintain, no balance you're responsible for keeping. You're allowed to be present without being steady, allowed to notice without correcting, allowed to exist without regulating the space around you. And nothing needs to change for this to be true. You don't need to become different. You don't need to undo who you've been. This is not about learning how to let go. It's simply about recognizing that right now you are not required to hold everything together. You can sit here without being the calm one, without being the anchor, without being the one who makes things easier for everyone else. Just here, as you are. And that is enough.